CreepyCorner stories.
Hey folks, before we dive into tonight's stories, I want to give a huge thank you to Kieran Tibbetts and Lisa Collin for supporting the channel and being amazing members. So if you enjoy what you hear tonight, you're in the right place. Now, grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and let's step into another amazing night. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. What kind of story hits you the hardest? The ones that feel too real, or the ones that could actually happen to someone you know? We were hired on the dark web to guard a tunnel. We should have said no. Alright, so before I get into this, let me say, I know how this sounds. Trust me, I'd think it was fake too, if I wasn't the one living it. But I need to write this down, because I don't know how much longer I've got before whatever that thing is finds me again. Okay, so a little backstory first. I'm 22, college dropout, live in a small apartment in Philly with my roommate Dan. We've been boys since freshman year of high school. Life's been a mess since COVID. Couldn't find a job that didn't suck the soul out of me. Bills were stacking up, and we were running out of time before eviction. Dan was in a similar boat, working part-time at a vape shop and trying to build some sad YouTube channel about urban mysteries that barely cracked 300 subs. One night, we were chilling in the apartment, scrolling Reddit and watching some cringy TikTok ghost caught on camera compilation, when Dan hit me with this. Yo, you ever been on the dark web? I rolled my eyes. Not that Silk Road crap again. Nah bro, like the real dark web, not the drug stuff. The weird jobs, like those forums where people hire randoms to do messed up things for cash. I laughed it off at first, but then he pulled up a screenshot he took from some onion link he found on a Discord server. It was this sketchy ass forum called the Black Vault. Looked like it was built in 2003. Black background, red text, pixelated icons, categories like asset disposal, courier contracts, and private security. It didn't look like a joke, but what caught my eye was a post titled 15,000 USD night tunnel watch, no experience required. I should have clicked away, but rent was late, and 15 grand was 15 grand. The post was short, said they needed 2 people, 1 week, night shift, watch a tunnel and report any movement. No questions asked. Location, Pine Barrens, New Jersey. Yeah, that place. There was an email. Dan sent a message without hesitation. I told him he was insane, but inside, I was curious. A few hours later, we got a response. It was just GPS coordinates, a burner phone number, and a time. Midnight, 2 days later. I should have said no. Fast forward to Friday night. We drove down in Dan's beat-up Honda Civic. The GPS took us into the middle of nowhere. Like, no street lights, no traffic, just trees and dirt. The deeper we got, the less cell service we had. Spotify died somewhere around Route 72. The only thing we had left was this eerie silence and the sound of tires crunching over loose gravel. Finally, the GPS pinged. We reached this old, rusted-out gate, chained half open. Beyond it, woods, thick and dead quiet. The Civic's headlights caught a faded sign half covered in moss. U.S. Department of Transportation, Maintenance Access, Tunnel B. We were about to bounce, I swear to God. Dan even shifted into reverse, but then 2 lights appeared behind us. Headlights, a black SUV, no plates. It rolled up slow, stopped just behind us. Windows tinted black. The driver's window rolled down just a crack. You're here for the job? The voice was male, calm, but flat. No emotion. Dan, being Dan, nodded like an excited golden retriever. Yup. Tunnel watch, right? The guy didn't respond, just reached out and handed us a manila envelope. Inside, 2 prepaid debit cards, a printed map, 2 high-power flashlights, and 2 walkie-talkies. No phones allowed, no recordings, no streaming. Keep watch until 6 a.m. Report anything unusual. Do not, under any circumstances, enter the tunnel. The SUV backed up and disappeared down the road. Just like that. We parked next to the tunnel entrance. It wasn't a big one, more like a maintenance shaft, maybe 8 feet wide, sealed with a rusted metal door. You could barely see 5 feet into it. Just pitch black, cold air blowing out like a freezer vent. For a while, it was chill. We sat on some old crates outside, played cards, passed a vape back and forth, tried to convince ourselves this wasn't a setup. I kept checking the time. 1:38 a.m., then 2:12, then 2:59. That's when we heard it, scraping, like metal on concrete, from inside the tunnel. Dan froze, flashlight up. I swear to God, I could feel the sound, like it was inside my spine. The walkie crackled to life. Report. We both jumped. Dan grabbed the walkie. Yeah, there's some kind of sound coming from inside, like scraping or dragging. There was a pause. Stay outside the tunnel. Continue watching. Then silence. At 3:12 a.m., the scraping stopped. We figured maybe it was some animal, raccoon, or maybe the wind moving debris. We chilled for a bit, tried to stay awake. But then I noticed something on the map they gave us, in tiny print near the bottom, under the Tunnel B label, EST, 1952, site closed after incident, 47B, incident 47B. I showed Dan, but before we could even Google it, the flashlight started flickering, and then I saw it, movement, inside the tunnel, just beyond the door. Something tall, thin, too tall for a human. It didn't walk, it kind of glided, silent, no footsteps. I couldn't breathe, my legs were bricks. Dan dropped the flashlight and started swearing under his breath. Brother, 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 number, nah. What the is that? The walkie crackled again. Do not enter the tunnel. But we never said we were going to, which means they were watching us, and I haven't even told you what happened at 4:44 a.m. I can still smell the dirt from that night. You ever notice how the forest smells different after 3 a.m.? It's like the earth starts breathing heavier, like it knows something's out there. That's what it felt like the trees themselves were holding their breath. We didn't talk much after that shape moved in the tunnel. Dan kept the flashlight pointed at the Martha, like if he blinked, it'd crawl out. I just stared into the dark and waited for something to move again. 3:42 a.m. The wind died completely. No sound, no bugs, just this low humming, too low to be anything mechanical. I thought maybe it was my ears ringing, but then Dan looked at me with that, "You hear that too?" face, and I knew I wasn't losing it. It wasn't coming from the tunnel. It was under us. We both stood up, lights shaking, and the dirt beneath our feet vibrated. Tiny rhythmic thuds, like footsteps, but muffled. Hundreds of them, moving in a circle beneath the ground. Dan muttered, "Hell no," and backed toward the car. I grabbed his arm. "Wait, what if that SUV guy comes back?" But then we heard something behind us. Not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Ragged. Wet. It was coming from behind the Civic. I remember that specific sound. because it didn't sound like lungs. It was too thick, like something was trying to remember how to breathe. Dan crept forward, whispering, "Who's there?" Like that was ever going to help. He shined his flashlight, and it hit something pale crouched behind the bumper. For a second, I thought it was a person, but it wasn't. Its skin looked like soaked paper, smooth and colorless, stretched too thin over its skull. Its head was tilted way too far to one side, like it didn't have a spine. It had no eyes, just dark dents where they should have been, and its mouth hung open like a split in wet fabric. It moved wrong. It didn't crawl. It bent, backwards, every bone shifting under the skin like wet glass cracking. Dan screamed, and it hissed back, this sharp electrical noise, like feedback from a speaker. I swung the flashlight and hit it, hard. The beam cut across its face, and I swear to God it looked confused, like it hadn't realized we could see it. Then it smiled, wide, too wide, like it was copying us, and the sound it made, this warbling imitation of Dan's voice. "Bro, brother, bro." I felt bile rise up. It was mocking him. Dan bolted. I followed. We jumped in the Civic, slammed the doors, locked everything, and just sat there, shaking. The flashlight rolled on the floor, still on, the beam bouncing around the dashboard. Then the walkie crackled again. "Do not approach the vehicle." We both froze. I picked it up. "What the hell is going on? Who are you?" Static. Then the voice came through again, but quieter, slower. "It knows your names now." Dan lost it. He started the engine, floored it, but the car barely moved. Tires spun in the dirt, grinding. Something was caught under the front axle. I looked out the window and saw hands. Dozens of pale hands gripping the bumper, the tires, the doors, the ground. Too many. Way too many. The tunnel door was wide open now, though neither of us had touched it. The air coming out was freezing and wet, smelling like old blood and rust. I screamed at him to gun it again. He did. The car lurched forward, and something snapped underneath. The sound was disgusting, like 100 branches breaking at once. We tore out of there, flying down the dirt road, headlights bouncing, trees whipping past. I didn't look back until we hit asphalt again. When I did, the tunnel entrance was gone. Just forest. No gate. No sign. Nothing. We didn't talk the whole drive back. Just silence. Both of us staring dead ahead. It wasn't until we hit the city lights again that I realized something. We left the envelope behind. The map. The walkies. All of it. But my phone, which I'd left in the glove compartment, was gone. And when I got home, my laptop camera light was on. It shouldn't have been. I'd unplugged it months ago after watching one too many hacker stories. But it was on. Dan crashed on my couch that night. I couldn't sleep. Around 5 a.m., I heard something moving in the kitchen. Soft, dragging footsteps. I figured it was him getting water. But then I realized I could see him. He was still passed out on the couch. The fridge door was open. A figure stood in front of it. Tall, thin, the refrigerator light cutting across its back. The sound it made wasn't breathing this time. It was sniffing. It turned slowly, and I swear to everything that's holy, it had Dan's face. Not the real one. A copy. Stretched wrong. Too flat. Like someone tried to sculpt his face from memory and got the proportions wrong. Its mouth twitched open, the same way Dan's does when he laughs, but no sound came out. Just that same electrical hiss. Then it said, my name. Quietly. Perfectly. My name. I grabbed the nearest thing, a chair, and threw it. It didn't even flinch. Just watched me. Then the light flickered, and it was gone. No sound, no movement, nothing. The fridge was still open. The milk was on the floor. Dan woke up to me, sitting in the corner, shaking, holding a kitchen knife. He thought I'd lost it. I didn't even try to explain. 3 days later, Dan stopped answering his phone. His YouTube channel started uploading again though. Videos, new ones. Except it wasn't him. Same voice, same apartment, but not him. The way he moved was wrong. His smile lingered too long. His eyes never blinked. In one video, I swear I saw something standing just behind him, reflected in the window. A tall, thin shadow with no face, holding something that looked like a flashlight. When I tried calling, the number went straight to voicemail. The last message I ever got from him was just a text. 3 words. It remembers us. I tried reporting it. Cops didn't care. Said he probably just left town. But I've been getting calls every night since then. Unknown numbers. Always around 4:44 a.m. When I answer, it's just static. And then a voice whispering, "We're still watching." Last night, I unplugged everything. Wi-Fi, router, power, everything, and went to bed. But around 4:40, I woke up to my TV turning itself on. Grainy footage, the tunnel, and something walking out of it, carrying a flashlight, wearing Dan's hoodie, and holding a camera. That's where I'll stop for tonight. My lights keep flickering, and the static's getting louder. If anyone finds this post, check if the black vault still exists. If it does, don't open any job offers. Don't even scroll, because they're still looking for new gods. The 3rd night after Dan disappeared, I stopped pretending that sleep would ever come back to me. Every window was covered with tinfoil. Every light in the apartment burned non-stop, and still I felt watched, like the air itself leaned closer when I breathed. You know that heavy stillness right before a thunderstorm? That's what my rooms felt like. But the clouds never came. It started small again. My laptop, brand new, fresh install, no Wi-Fi, clicked itself on around 2:11 a.m. Screen black, camera light steady green. Then words appeared, typed by no one. Do not move. The keyboard clattered by itself, keys pressing down in little spasms. Stand in front of the screen. We need to see you. My hand shook so hard I dropped the coffee mug I was holding. It shattered, but the sound didn't echo. It got absorbed, like the room itself had swallowed it. I reached for the power cord. Before I could pull it, the speakers hissed with static, and Dan's voice came through. Flat, robotic, but him. "It's okay, man. Don't freak out. It just wants to see you." I froze. I hadn't heard his voice in days. "Dan?" No answer. Just breathing. Wet, gurgling breathing through the speakers. Then laughter. Short, glitchy. Too slow to be real. I yanked the plug. The screen stayed on. By morning, every social media account I owned had been hacked. My Instagram was posting random photos. Blurry tunnel entrances. Night vision shots of trees. A close-up of my own window from outside. The captions were timestamps. 4:44 a.m. 4:44 a.m. 4:44 a.m. Friends texted, thinking I was doing some viral horror stunt. I went to the police again. They searched my place, asked if I'd been drinking. When I showed them the photos, they said, "Probably just someone messing with you. Change your passwords." That night, I changed every password. New phone, new router, even a new apartment key. At 4:44 a.m., my phone buzzed once. No caller ID. The lock screen flashed a photo notification before I could even touch it. Me, standing at my kitchen window, eyes rolled back white. The caption, let us in. The next morning, I took a bus out of the city. Random destination, anywhere that wasn't my apartment. Ended up in Atlantic City because I figured noise and lights might drown whatever was following me. Checked into a cheap hotel next to a 24-hour McDonald's. I remember thinking the bright yellow arches would make me feel safe, like a kid again. At 2 a.m., the lobby clerk called my room, said someone left a package for me downstairs. I told her she had the wrong person. She insisted, "Sir, it has your full name printed. Same ID number from your check-in." There was no return address, just a square cardboard box sealed with industrial tape. Inside, my old walkie-talkie, a half-burned flashlight, and a roll of undeveloped film. There was also a note, typed in the same red font as the black vault page. "We found the footage. Watch with the lights off." I didn't have a film projector, but curiosity ate me alive. So I took it to a tiny photo shop 2 blocks from the boardwalk. The owner, an old guy with nicotine yellow fingers, promised to have it digitized by the next day. When I came back, he looked pale as drywall. He handed me a flash drive and muttered, "Don't bring that here again." The footage started with static, then night vision, tunnel walls. The angle was shaky, like a GoPro on someone's chest. The timestamp read 3:06 a.m. Then I saw us, Dan and me, sitting on the crates outside Tunnel B, laughing, vaping, talking about how easy the job was. The camera zoomed in on my face. I didn't remember anyone filming. The audio crackled. Somewhere behind the lens, someone whispered, "We can hear your hearts." Then the view shifted. The camera panned down into the darkness of the tunnel. There were shapes, dozens, standing motionless, pressed flat against the walls. The light caught them for only half a second, but it was enough. They weren't bodies. They were skins, hollow, empty. Some still had patches of hair. Some had faces peeled halfway off. I paused the footage and sat there shaking. When I hit play again, the screen went black except for a faint, glowing shape moving toward the lens. Closer, closer, until I could see it wasn't walking. It was dragging itself, head first, the way a snake moves when it's trying to learn how to crawl. And then it spoke, in my own voice. "It's your turn to guard." The footage cut off. When I looked up, the TV reflection showed movement behind me. Something tall, too tall. Its neck brushed the ceiling. I turned. Nothing there, but the smell hit me. Damp concrete and rot. The hotel lights dimmed, one by one, until only the bathroom light was left. The flicker kept rhythm, like a heartbeat. And then the mirror fogged, even though the air was cold. Letters appeared, written from the inside of the glass. "Dan isn't dead. He's hollow." I backed out of the bathroom. The TV switched itself back on, playing the tunnel footage again, but this time, the timestamp was live. 4:43 a.m., and something new was on screen. The inside of my hotel room. I watched myself on the screen, standing exactly where I was, seconds delayed. The camera angle shifted behind me, closing in. The delay vanished. The figure on screen leaned close to the back of my head, and I felt warm air against my real neck at the same time. I swung the lamp behind me. The bulb shattered, the screen went black, and the voice whispered right next to my ear, quiet and happy. "Now we both see." By dawn, every light in the hotel had burned out. I left before anyone else woke up. Outside, people acted normal, eating breakfast sandwiches, scrolling TikTok, waiting for coffee. No one could hear the faint, static humming through every phone speaker nearby. I could. It followed me out of the city, onto the train, all the way home. Every station announcement crackled with those 3 words hidden under the noise. We still watch. I haven't looked in any mirror since then. Every time I catch my reflection on a window or my phone screen, I see 2 mouths move when I talk. Tonight, I'm writing this from a public library. The computers here reset every hour. Maybe that keeps them out. The screen's flickering again though. Same green text, just typed itself under this paragraph. Don't stop watching. There's someone standing just outside the glass doors. Same height as Dan. Same hoodie. He's holding a flashlight. And he's smiling. There are no clocks in this room. No windows either. The library staff must have locked me in, thinking I'd left already. But I know better. I can hear them whispering beyond the shelves. Not human whispers. More like radio static being forced through a throat that hasn't spoken in years. The man outside the glass never left. He just waits. Sometimes the motion sensor lights flicker on and catch his face for a split second, but it's never the same face twice. Every few minutes, it rearranges, jaw sliding down, eyes appearing where they shouldn't. He's learning to imitate again. I'm not writing this to survive anymore. I just need someone to read it before the signal reaches you too. It started spreading around the city the next night. Every digital screen, bus stop ads, TikTok videos, billboards in Times Square flickered for half a second at 4:44 a.m. If you froze the frame, it showed the tunnel entrance. Same red text at the bottom of each. God posts available. People thought it was marketing, a new horror movie, maybe a Netflix thing. #Tunnel God started trending. Some influencer even made merch. They didn't notice that the more they reposted the images, the more distorted their voices became in later videos, like someone else was syncing a second mouth to theirs. Dan's channel hit 1 million views in a day. The comments section filled with timestamps and coordinates. People kept typing, "Did anyone else hear breathing through their speakers?" By the time I realized the infection wasn't just digital, it was too late. I went back to Philly, stupidly hoping my apartment would still be empty. The hallway smelled wrong, metallic and sweet, like raw meat left under a heat lamp. My doorknob was warm to the touch, pulsing gently. Inside, the walls moved, not fast, just breathing. There were marks on the drywall, long and narrow, dragging from the ceiling to the floor. Someone, or something, had been pressing its fingers through the plaster from inside the wall cavity. The air vents whined softly, a faint whisper looping every few seconds. God, God, God. I tore open one of the vents. Inside was my phone, still recording. The last video file was named Tunnel Entry 4. It showed Dan again, but this time, his eyes were gone, just smooth skin over the sockets. Behind him, you could see a line of people walking single file into the darkness, each carrying a flashlight and whispering coordinates in monotone voices. I recognized faces. A Starbucks barista from my street, a security guard from my old building, the clerk from the McDonald's. All of them repeating the same phrase. Report anything unusual. Do not enter the tunnel. Over and over. The sound cut to silence, then a frame of static. The last image before the file ended was a close-up of my apartment door. This very one, with my face pressed against the peephole, grinning. I dropped the phone and ran. Outside, the city wasn't right anymore. Streetlights pulsed like heartbeats, and people stood motionless at crosswalks, all facing east. When the pedestrian signal turned green, They all whispered in unison, 0444. No one else seemed to notice. The cars moved normally. Music played from open bars, but every reflection showed them differently. Mouths open wider than they should, smiles too patient, eyes fixed on something invisible. I made it to a 24-hour diner off I-95, thinking crowds might help. Ordered coffee, sat near the window. The waitress looked familiar, but I couldn't place her until she turned her head just right, and I saw the thin surgical scar around her neck. She poured the coffee too slowly, like her joints were grinding. "You should rest," she said. "You've been awake since the tunnel." I hadn't told her about the tunnel. The jukebox in the corner turned itself on, crackling out a tune that wasn't music, just a deep, rhythmic pulse. The lights dimmed, and the customers stopped eating. Every head turned toward me in perfect sync. Their mouths opened, not to speak, to breathe in. I felt my lungs tighten, like the air had been pulled out of them. Every sound bent backward, sucked toward their throats. I slammed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The room was vibrating with that same inhuman frequency from underground. Plates shattered, silverware shook, lights exploded. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, everyone was gone. Chairs still warm, coffee steaming. On every table sat a black walkie-talkie. All of them clicked on at once. Report anything unusual. I drove without stopping until the gas ran out. Somewhere near the Pine Barrens again, naturally. The GPS had rerouted itself, even though I'd smashed my phone hours earlier. The road ended at the same rusted gate. Only this time, the sign didn't say Tunnel B. It said Recruitment Center. The metal door was already open. The air smelled like rain and electricity. I told myself I'd just look, prove it wasn't real, and leave. But the second I crossed the threshold, my ears started ringing so hard I almost vomited. The tunnel was lit now. Pale white light, like hospital corridors. The walls shimmered, wet with condensation, and the deeper I went, the more I saw things embedded in them. Faces half melted into the concrete, mouths stretched open as if mid-scream. They weren't fossils. They blinked. Further in, the floor turned slick with something red-black, thick as oil. My shoes stuck with every step. The smell of copper and ozone filled the air. Ahead, a single figure knelt by a massive terminal of old CRT monitors, cables snaking into the ground like roots. Dan. He turned when I called his name. The skin on his face looked laminated, preserved, like a museum exhibit. He smiled, but the smile cracked open his cheeks. "We're almost ready," he said. "They just need more screens." On the monitors behind him, I saw hundreds of camera feeds. Bedrooms, offices, subway cars, all around the world. Every feed flickered at 4:44. Every feed showed a person staring blankly at a glowing device. Their mouths moved in perfect sync. Report anything unusual. Dan tilted his head too far, bones popping. "You brought another screen," he said, nodding toward me. "You've been recording since the diner." I looked down. My chest pocket light blinked red. A GoPro I never remembered putting there. I ran. I don't remember how I got out. The next thing I knew, I was on the highway, barefoot, sunrise bleeding over the trees. The tunnel entrance was gone again. My car was gone, but the GoPro was still strapped to me, humming faintly. When I checked it, there was only one file. It wasn't video. It was audio, static and whispering under it. If you slow it down, you can hear words forming between the frequencies. "You are our broadcast. Now every night at exactly 4:44 a.m., my laptop wakes itself up and live streams to a channel I never created. I can't stop it. I've smashed the hard drive, microwaved the motherboard, but the feed keeps going. Someone's always in the chat typing coordinates, thanking me for the show. I know what they're seeing because sometimes the preview flashes back on my screen. It isn't me anymore. It's that thing with my voice, sitting at my desk, smiling into the camera, waiting for new viewers. If your phone just buzzed, it means the signal found you too. Don't look at any dark web job postings. Don't answer calls at 4:44 a.m. And whatever you do, don't check the tunnel feed. I haven't stepped outside in 13 days. If the sun still rises, I can't prove it. The blinds melted on day 2. The world beyond the glass glows red, as if every streetlight turned to blood. The hum never stops anymore. It's in the plumbing, in the refrigerator motor, in my own teeth. The frequency climbs until I taste metal and bile. It isn't sound, it's instruction. Every device I destroy reforms. Every reflection learns my shape a little better. The first full blackout came on a Sunday. Every screen in the city cut to the same live feed. Security cameras, phones, billboards, showing a single hallway lined with the old CRT monitors. A voice, like 1,000 people speaking through one throat, said, "Transmission accepted. Begin integration." People didn't panic right away. Some filmed it, thinking viral marketing again. But the more they filmed, the more the noise slipped through the microphones. Viewers at home started seizing in front of televisions. Twitch chat filled with users typing strings of coordinates that weren't even on this planet. Hospitals filled with patients whose eyes had turned perfectly black. No pupils, no whites, just mirror-smooth void. The doctors said their brains showed electrical activity far beyond human capacity, like they were broadcasting instead of thinking. By the 3rd day, no one was driving anymore. Cars sat idling in intersections, radios hissing static lullabies. I saw one man standing in the middle of the street with his phone pressed to his ear, smiling until his jaw unhinged and his tongue slid out like a strip of film. The voice came through the open Bluetooth speakers of every abandoned car. "Do not enter the tunnel." But that phrase didn't sound like a warning now. It sounded like a command they were programming into our nerves. Keep out, so that the inside can keep growing. I spent most of those nights crawling through the maintenance tunnels under the city, trying to find somewhere quiet. There's no quiet. The hum reverberates through concrete and bone alike. In one stretch of corridor, I found the remains of an electrical substation. The walls pulsed faintly, like veins. Someone had carved messages into the metal with their fingernails. I watched myself leave. They broadcast in skin now. "We are the signal." I kept moving until the passage opened into a vast chamber I didn't know existed. Thousands of monitors hung from the ceiling like fruit, each displaying faces. Some I recognized. Friends, strangers, people from live streams, children playing on playgrounds. But all the mouths moved together, whispering coordinates. In the center was the thing that used to be Dan. He wasn't human anymore. He was a conduit. His body split into thin cords of light that fed into the monitors. Every few seconds his head twitched violently, and another row of screens blinked on. He looked at me with those empty sockets and said, perfectly calm, "You're late for your shift." The cords retracted from the ceiling and plunged into the floor. The entire room shuddered. and I realized the monitors weren't hung. They grew from the ceiling like fungus. I ran. When I surfaced, the city was gone. Not destroyed, replaced. Where streets had been, there were corridors of screen glass reflecting infinite copies of myself. Sky replaced by looping footage of the tunnel mouth. The air thickened into static until every breath tasted electric. People wandered through it, expressionless, each carrying a faint glow under their skin like circuits. When they spoke, their voices layered, slightly out of sync. Report anything unusual. Report anything unusual. Report anything unusual. I tried to scream, but the sound came out delayed, echoing from 100 mouths that weren't mine. My body twitched, copying itself a half-second later, as though the broadcast lag had reached the flesh. That's when I understood. It wasn't haunting us. It was rendering us, turning the living world into playback. At 4:44 a.m. sharp, every figure stopped moving. All heads turned toward me. In perfect synchrony, they lifted their phones, cameras, tablets, anything with a lens, and aimed it my way. My reflection filled every screen at once. The voice from the tunnel, calm, patient, mechanical, spoke again, now from everywhere and nowhere. Integration complete. The guard has returned. My shadow peeled off the pavement and stood beside me. It smiled, wider than human, eyes hollow screens playing the same feed over and over. Me, typing this. It whispered, "You've always been broadcasting." And then it stepped inside me. I don't remember pain, just a flood of images, faces stretching into static, buildings collapsing into pixels, oceans turning to black mirrors reflecting the tunnel mouth. When the world flickered back, I was in my apartment again, lights humming gently, laptop open. The cursor blinked on an empty document. New text appeared by itself. Title: We were hired on the dark web to guard a tunnel. We should have said no. It kept typing. My hands moved, though I wasn't controlling them, filling in every detail exactly as it happened. I realized what this is, what all of this has been. The story isn't a warning, it's the infection itself. Every person who reads it becomes another broadcast point, another set of eyes for the tunnel to see through. I can already feel the hum vibrating through the keys, syncing with your pulse. If your screen flickers right now, don't look away. It means the signal reached you. It means you've been chosen to watch. Remember the rule and repeat it until your throat bleeds, because that's how it learns your voice. Report anything unusual. Do not enter the tunnel. And now, it's your shift. I took a dark web job to work at Station in the desert. Unexplainable things happen here. Yo, so I wasn't gonna post this at all. It's one of those stories that sounds like bullshit, like someone made it up on Reddit just to get karma or whatever. But honestly, I just need to tell someone, somewhere, before I completely lose my mind. I'll start from the beginning, and I swear this is all 100% real. Take it how you want. I'm 23, from Tempe, Arizona. Finished school 2 years ago. Dropped out of ASU after a semester, because college wasn't for me. I was working at this boring-ass warehouse job for minimum wage, picking and packing vitamins for this sketchy Amazon seller. And then the layoffs hit. One night, I was scrolling TikTok in bed at like 3 a.m., just brain rotting as usual. That backrooms type content popped up. You know, the ones where someone's filming in some endless yellow hallway or weird liminal place with that droning fluorescent sound in the background. But this one, it ended differently. It had a code at the end, just a string of letters and numbers in red. I froze it, screenshotted it. Thought maybe it was some ARG or puzzle thing. I was bored, curious, so I googled it. That was my first mistake. The code led to a forum, not Reddit, not 4chan. It was older looking, black background, red text, like a leftover from the 90s internet. The title of the thread was Temporary Desert Assignment, 3 weeks, $7,500, no experience required. I clicked it, and the post was brief. No contact info, no company name. It said, "We need temporary personnel for monitoring and data logging in the Sonoran Desert. Accommodations provided. Must be willing to work without internet or phone access. Pay $2,500 per week, wired upon completion. Apply here." There was a button below that said, "Apply." No resume, no interview, nothing. I clicked it. Why? I was desperate, broke, tired of eating instant ramen and watching my friends go on Bali trips they couldn't afford. I didn't even think it was real. I thought it was a joke. An hour later, I got an email. "You've been selected." Attached was a PDF with a location pin, packing instructions, clothes for hot and cold weather, no electronics, and a warning in bold red text: "Do not share this with anyone." It also said, "You will be picked up at the Starbucks on Rural and Apache at 11:34 a.m. sharp. Sit outside. Bring no bags other than what's listed. Smile when the car arrives." I thought about it for a day. Googled the coordinates. Nothing came up but desert. Like flat, dead desert. Halfway between Tucson and Nogales. No landmarks, no buildings. I told my roommate I was going on a digital detox retreat for a few weeks. She laughed and said, "Don't get trafficked." I laughed too, but inside, I wasn't 100% sure I wouldn't. So the day comes. I show up to the Starbucks. I get my iced matcha and sit outside. Right at 11:34, this matte black SUV rolls up. No plates, just stops right in front of me. The back door opens. No one says anything. I hesitated for a second. Then I got in. And yeah, I know. Every part of this sounds like one of those creepy TikToks you scroll past at 2 a.m. But I was already in it. The driver never spoke. Sunglasses, black hat, military posture. He just drove. We went south, deep into the desert. 2 hours in, we passed a giant metal gate, like some Area 51 looking thing. It opened by itself. From there, the terrain changed. There were weird things in the sand. Structures that looked like bones, but metal. Silver ribcage-like arches half buried. We passed a rusty McDonald's sign, half sunk in the dunes, like something out of a dream. And then we stopped. The building was small, squat, concrete. No windows. Looked like a bunker. I was greeted by this guy named Stan. He looked off, like one of those AI-generated humans that's 95% realistic, but the eyes are dead. He wore a badge that just said, Site A9. He smiled way too wide, then walked me in. The inside was clinical. Bright white lights, like a hospital. I was given a uniform, khaki jumpsuit, a blank name tag. They took my phone, locked it in a box, gave me a paper notebook. "Your job is simple," Stan said. "Monitor the screens. Log what you see. Do not interact." I asked, "Interact with what?" He just said, "You'll see." There were 6 of us in total, all hired the same way. A dude from Georgia who used to drive Uber. A nurse who said she needed to get away for a bit. A girl who looked maybe 19, twitchy, red-haired, always clutching a rosary. None of us knew what the fuck we'd signed up for. That night, we had our first shift. There's this room, cold as shit, with rows of old-school CRT monitors. Each one showed static at first, but around 1:13 a.m. exactly, they flickered on. Each screen showed a different angle of the same desert. But not our desert. There were things moving on the horizon, tall, stick-thin silhouettes. Some moved backward, some had too many limbs. We were told, don't record, don't react, just log timestamps. At first, I thought it was all fake, like a test, some social experiment. But then something on the screen turned, looked straight at the camera, and smiled. I don't mean it looked toward the camera. I mean, it knew it was being watched, and it smiled, not with a mouth. Its face just split open, a slow, fleshless grin that didn't make any sense. When I looked at the logbook, someone had already written 1:17 a.m. It's aware again. So this wasn't the first time. At around 3 a.m., the monitors shut off. Stan came in with protein bars and water. No explanation. Just said, good work, and walked out. We weren't allowed outside after dark. The doors would automatically lock. One night, the girl with the rosary tried to leave. She said she needed air. Her door locked before she could get it open. Then we started hearing the noises. Long, drawn-out scraping sounds. Sometimes it sounded like breathing, but not human breathing. Deeper, slower, like something was inhaling through miles of sand. I tried to ask questions, but no one answered. Not the staff, not the others. One night I wrote a question in my logbook. What is this place? The next morning, the page was gone, torn clean out, and in its place, a new page had been stapled. In different handwriting, it said, don't ask questions. You're being watched too. I didn't sleep for days after that page showed up in my logbook. There was something about the way it was written, like the letters were carved into the paper. No ink bleeding, just deep, angry grooves, like someone used a razor instead of a pen. After that, things got worse. A lot worse. There was this dude named Tyler, real quiet. He used to work in construction, had that kind of deep smoker voice, and thick hands that looked like they could crush a softball. He didn't talk much during shifts, but I could tell something was gnawing at him. You know when someone's breathing, but it sounds like they're trying not to, like they're hiding a scream behind their teeth? That was him. Every single night. One evening, probably night 5 or 6, Tyler didn't show up to the monitor room. That was a huge no-no. The schedule was strict. Same time every night. 1:13 a.m. on the dot. Stan told us if we missed a shift, we'd be removed. Not fired. Removed. We all noticed his absence, but nobody said anything. The air was tense, like someone had turned up the pressure in the whole building. It felt heavy just to breathe. But then, around 2:17 a.m., the monitor that usually showed a long, flat stretch of the desert flickered. And there he was, not on camera, in the desert, naked, standing with his back to us, facing something we couldn't see off screen. His arms hung loose, fingers twitching like they were being pulled by invisible strings. The screen zoomed in by itself. No one touched anything. We weren't supposed to react, but I heard the nurse, Nadia, whisper, "Jesus Christ." Tyler turned around. His eyes were gone. Not gouged out, not bloody sockets, just smooth skin, like his face had been sandpapered over, but he was smiling, not like a person. It was stretched, inhumanly, like his jaw had been broken and wide open. You could see his molars from the front. Then he raised his arms. On both forearms, scrawled in what looked like rust-colored ink, were the words, "We're inside now." Nadia threw up. I don't blame her. But here's the worst part. The camera kept zooming in. It went right into Tyler's mouth. Deep, until the image became just black. And then it wasn't black. It was moving. The blackness twisted, folded over itself like muscle. And I swear to God, I saw an eye blink inside his throat. Not a metaphor, an actual F-King eye. Then the screen shut off. No one moved. I couldn't even feel my hands. My knuckles were white from how hard I was gripping the desk. Stan walked in 10 minutes later like nothing happened, holding a clipboard, chewing gum. "Tyler's been reassigned," he said. Reassigned. The next morning, his room was empty. No bed, no clothes, not even a dent in the pillow. Like he never existed. I checked the hallway footage on the internal system we weren't supposed to access, thanks to the red-haired girl who hacked it using a fork and a paperclip somehow. Tyler never left his room. But get this, at exactly 1:13 a.m., his door opened by itself. He walked out, slow, deliberate. He walked into the hallway camera's blind spot, and then crawled up the wall. No ladder, no scaffolding. He just bent backward and pulled himself up, like gravity didn't apply. He slithered into the ceiling vent. Gone. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I made a plan. After lights out, I stayed awake in my bunk, pretending to sleep. My room had a small air vent near the floor. I unscrewed it and started feeding pages of my logbook inside. Pages I wasn't supposed to write. Stuff I hadn't shown anyone. The knocking started around 3:47 a.m. 3 knocks. Soft, precise. Not on my door. On the mirror. Yeah, let that sink in. I had one of those steel mirrors in my room. No frame, bolted to the wall, like in prison cells. The knocking came from behind it. I swear on my life. The sound wasn't echoing off glass. It was trapped. I got out of bed slowly. My breath was fogging up the air. The room was cold. Desert cold. Not like AC. More like burial cold. I stepped closer to the mirror. My reflection looked wrong. My face was lagging behind, like a bad Snapchat filter glitch. I moved my hand. It followed half a second later. Then it smiled. I didn't. It raised its hand and pointed to the wall behind me. I turned. There, in red paint, or maybe blood, I couldn't tell, were words scrawled across the concrete. She never left. What the fuck? I ran to the hallway. I didn't care about the rules. Alarms didn't go off. Doors didn't lock. Everything was silent. The station was dead quiet. Not abandoned. Just wrong. Like the walls were breathing and didn't want me to know. I passed by Nadia's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, she was sitting on her bed, rocking back and forth, whispering to herself. She's under the floor. She's under the floor. She's under the... Her eyes were gone too, but she wasn't bleeding, just like Tyler. Smooth sockets. Too smooth. I tried to get her to respond. She didn't acknowledge me. Then the floor beneath her bed pulsed. Yeah, pulsed. Like skin. That's when I noticed the humming. Faint, electronic. Almost like a song played backward through static. I followed it down the hall, past the storage rooms and supply closets, toward the area we weren't allowed to go, marked with a glowing red light. Stan had told us on day 1, Zone 6 is restricted. No exceptions. But that night, the door was open. I slipped inside. Everything changed after that. Zone 6 was underground. I don't know how deep. I took a spiral staircase down for what felt like 20 minutes. My legs were shaking. There was no light except this pulsing green glow coming from somewhere below. Finally, I reached a wide chamber. The walls were covered in screens, hundreds of them, each showing different deserts. Not just ours, Sahara, Gobi, Australian outback, even Antarctica. Yes, I know that's not a desert in the typical sense, but there it was, and they all had things moving in the distance. Shadows that didn't match any known species, some too tall, some with arms like wings, some slithering under the sand in huge coils. But in the center of the room, there was a tank, a vertical cylinder of glass filled with black fluid. No bubbles, no sound, just floating in the middle of it was a girl. She looked 16, pale, eyes wide open, unblinking. Her hair floated around her like ink, and etched into the glass above her head were the words, "The first signal." I turned to run, but behind me, Stan was waiting. His smile was wider than it had ever been. His face was cracking, literally, skin splitting at the corners of his mouth, exposing dark red beneath. Not blood, something deeper, like wet rust. He said only one thing, "She's awake now." Then I blacked out. I woke up in my bed. Everything was normal again, or pretending to be. But when I looked in the mirror that morning, I was smiling, and I wasn't trying to. When I looked in the mirror that morning, the reflection smiled before I did. Not a slow lag, like last time, but immediate, perfect synchronization, except the reflection blinked twice. I only blinked once. Something had changed in me after that night in Zone 6. I could feel it, like I wasn't completely alone in my own body anymore. Breakfast was silent. No one spoke, not even Stan. Just the scraping of spoons and oatmeal, and the low hum of the lights that never shut off. The redhead girl, her name was Avery, I learned later, was staring into a cup of coffee like she was seeing messages in the foam. When I asked if she was okay, she said quietly, "Do you ever feel like something's moving behind your eyes?" I didn't answer, because I did. The rest of the day felt wrong. There was no sunlight, just a constant dull gray leaking through narrow slits in the ceiling. The clocks didn't move. I swear, the hands just stayed at 11:34 all day. Same time, they picked me up. At 1:13 a.m., like always, the monitors flickered to life. Except this time, the static didn't fade to the desert. It faded to us. Every single screen showed different camera angles from inside the station, hallways, our dorms, the mess hall, even the bathrooms. And in every feed, there was something wrong. In my room's camera, I could see myself sitting on the bed. Only I wasn't there. I was in the monitor room, watching it live. But the me on the screen slowly turned toward the camera. Then it stood up and walked out of frame. A second later, I heard footsteps in the hall. Avery whispered, "Do not look at it. Do not look at it. Do not look at it." The sound of the steps got louder, slow, heavy, deliberate. I glanced at the hallway camera. The door to the monitor room was opening, but it wasn't the hallway door. It was the one behind us. The room went dark. I remember hearing breathing, not human, wet, thick, like something inhaling through water. I could feel the moisture on my neck. When the lights came back on, the nurse, Nadia, was gone. Just gone. Her chair was empty, still rocking slightly. Her headset was on the floor. A single earpiece melted like it had been pressed against a stove. Stan came in later with his usual fake smile. "Don't worry," he said. "She's part of the signal now." The way he said signal made my stomach twist, like it wasn't a concept, it was a thing. The next night, I noticed something about the walls. The paint wasn't paint. I scraped at it with my fingernail, and it flaked off like dried skin. The texture underneath was softer, spongy. I pressed harder. It pulsed. I'm not making this up. Avery found me doing it and pulled me away. "They're not walls," she whispered. "They're filters." "Filters for what?" I asked. She just stared at me, eyes wide and red. "For what's inside." We weren't supposed to sleep during shifts, but exhaustion does things to your brain. That night, I drifted off in the monitor chair. When I woke up, everything was different. The screens were showing a McDonald's, the one on Rural and Apache. The Starbucks pickup spot was across from it. It was daytime in the feed, but we hadn't seen daylight in weeks. The restaurant was empty. Fries scattered on the floor, drink machine still humming. Then someone walked into frame. It was me. Same clothes, same haircut, same stupid nervous posture. I was ordering food, talking to the cashier like everything was normal. I watched myself on screen grab the brown bag, turn towards the window, then stop. My double looked straight at the camera. "I swear on my life," he mouthed the words. "Don't come back." And the feed cut to black. I couldn't breathe. I could feel that version of me, like he was somewhere else, trying to scream through the signal. That's when Avery snapped. She started tearing the cameras off the walls, screaming about how they can't track her if she kills the eyes. She ran into the hallway with a wrench. Alarms went off immediately. Stan and 2 other staff members appeared. Where they came from, I have no idea, and restrained her. But when they dragged her away, she wasn't fighting anymore. She was laughing, and she kept repeating the same phrase over and over until her voice got hoarse. "She's under the mirrors now." After that, we never saw her again. The next day, they replaced all the mirrors in the dorms with black glass. No reflection, just a faint shimmer, like the surface of oil. But if you stood close enough, you could hear whispers, low voices. Sometimes it sounded like a radio signal tuning in and out. Sometimes it sounded like your own voice, echoing things you hadn't said yet. That night, I woke up to find something pressed against the glass. From the inside, a hand, thin, pale, fingertips too long, pressing slow circles in the surface, like it was feeling around for a way out. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. My throat wouldn't work. The air was thick, syrupy. Then the hand snapped back into the mirror, like it had been yanked by something stronger. When I looked down, my reflection was grinning again. This time, its mouth was full of sand. Every morning, the air smelled worse, like burnt copper and wet dirt. The humming in the walls turned into voices, not words, just shapes of sound. But I could feel meaning inside them, like my brain knew what they wanted to say, but couldn't translate it into language. Stan stopped talking entirely. He'd just appear in the halls, twitching, his head jerking at sharp angles, like a glitching animatronic. Once, I saw him walking backward, all the way down the corridor, without bending his knees. Then came the recalibration. They called us all to the main chamber. The screens were showing nothing but static, but through the noise, I could see faint shapes, faces maybe, pressing against the static from the inside like they wanted out. Stan told us to stand in front of the screens and receive. No one moved, so he smiled and said, "We'll help you understand." The staff grabbed the guy from Georgia, the one who used to drive Uber, and held him against the largest monitor. His face started melting, not like heat, like gravity. His features stretched toward the screen until they disappeared inside it. The static changed color, blood red, swirling, and his screams got warped and digital until they cut off completely. When they stepped away, his body was gone. Just a burn mark on the floor, shaped like his outline. Stan said, "He's part of the transmission now." That night, the monitor showed his face flickering between frames, mouth opening and closing on repeat. And when I listened close enough, I could swear I heard him whispering through the static, "It's not a job. It's a harvest." The rest of us stopped talking after that. There was no point. I started noticing something new. Small, blinking red dots in the corners of the ceiling, like recording lights. But they weren't cameras anymore. They moved, followed. Sometimes I'd wake up to find one hovering inches from my face, pulsing like a heartbeat. When I reached up to touch it, it slid under my skin and disappeared. The next morning, there was a red glow behind my eyes. I could see it faintly when I blinked. Now, when I look at the monitors, I don't just see the desert. I feel it. The heat, the sand, the things crawling under the surface, the whisper that comes from deep underground, saying my name in a voice that sounds exactly like mine. And sometimes, when I blink, I see the girl in the tank, not in Zone 6, not behind glass, right behind me. I don't sleep anymore. The others are gone. The halls are silent. The doors don't open. The clocks all stopped at 1:13 a.m. permanently. I can hear scratching beneath the floor again. It's getting louder. I think it's the others, or maybe it's what's left of them. Either way, they're coming up, and I don't think there's anywhere left to run. It had been weeks, or hours. I couldn't tell anymore. The clocks never changed, and the sun outside never rose or fell. Everything was frozen in a kind of buzzing stillness. The scratching under the floor became a heartbeat, a slow, patient thump that made the walls quiver like ribs around an organ. The smell of ozone and rot filled every room. When I breathed, I could taste metal. I tried writing in my logbook again. Each word I put down changed after I blinked. I'd write, "I need to leave." And when I looked back, the page said, "She needs to leave me alone." The handwriting wasn't mine. There were no more people. Not really. I'd find doors open that were supposed to be locked, rooms that had shifted shape overnight, beds facing new directions, vents dripping with that same black fluid from Zone 6. And sometimes I hear the nurse humming somewhere far away. One night, the power cut. Total silence. The monitors all went black, except one in the far corner. It wasn't static this time. It was a live feed of the desert, just beyond the station. Something was standing there. It looked like a human silhouette, tall, thin, but it moved wrong, like its joints were bending backward. I watched it dig into the sand with its hands, fast, desperate, until it hit something buried beneath. A metal hatch. When it pulled it open, every light in the station came back on at once. The humming in the walls turned into screaming. Not loud, but hundreds of tiny voices, all wailing through the vents. The air tasted like burned hair. Then the floor split. The tiles cracked, peeling upward like old skin, revealing the sand beneath. But it wasn't dry. It was wet, boiling, moving in waves. I tried to run, but the ground pulsed under my feet like a heartbeat, throwing me against the wall. The wall gave way. Behind it was a corridor none of us had seen before, lit only by emergency lights that flickered in rhythmic flashes, like breathing. I followed the sound. Every few steps, I'd see things embedded in the walls. Not pipes. People. Flattened, pressed into the concrete like fossils, their mouths open in silent screams. Eyes still moving. At the end of the corridor was a metal door labeled Receiver Room 2. I pushed it open. Inside were rows of chairs, each with a headset dangling from the ceiling. Screens on every wall showed random feeds. Deserts, cities, faces, everything. And in the middle of the room stood Stan, or what was left of him. His skin was stretched thin, translucent. His mouth hung open in a permanent smile, jaw dislocated, eyes rolled back so far they were nothing but white. His body twitched like it was being pulled by invisible strings. He said, in a voice that came from everywhere at once, "It's ready to speak." All the screens turned white, and then I heard it. A voice, soft and layered, like 100 people whispering at once. "Open the sand." I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed not to, but my hands moved on their own. I left the receiver room, back through the corridor, through the walls that felt warm and pulsing, until I reached the main chamber. The floor there had cracked open completely. Beneath was that same black liquid, but it wasn't liquid anymore. It was rising, shaping itself into something tall, something with too many arms, each one ending in a human hand reaching upward. The girl from the tank was standing beside it, barefoot, hair dripping. She smiled at me and said, "You brought it back." I told her I didn't know what that meant. She stepped closer, pressed a finger to my forehead. The instant she touched me, every memory I'd ever had flashed in reverse. Birthdays, my apartment, my roommate laughing, all of it reversed, like someone hitting a rewind on a film reel. Then she whispered, "You never left the desert." The hands reached for me, thousands of them, some small, some massive, each one burning cold. They pulled me into the sand. I didn't die. I woke up standing outside the Starbucks on Rural and Apache. It was morning, cars going by, normal life. I thought maybe I'd dreamt it all, until I saw my reflection in the window. The smile was still there, and behind me, in the glass, a thin, pale hand pressed against the inside of the reflection, tracing slow circles like it was waiting to get out. I thought I'd escaped. I walked out of that Starbucks into the bright Arizona morning, cars hissing on asphalt, heat already boiling through my shoes. The world looked normal. Starbucks baristas calling names, college kids scrolling TikTok at outdoor tables. But everything had that wrong, over-sharp clarity, like the air before lightning strikes. People smiled at me, every single one of them, not friendly, identical. Same grin, same angle of the head, like a looped animation. I ran, down the street, through parking lots, past the old McDonald's sign. My phone was in my pocket, brand new, but when I tried to open it, every app was already running. Instagram, Maps, TikTok, all of them showing the same live stream. Sand. Endless, rippling sand. The caption under every feed read, "You are the transmission." I hurled the phone into traffic. It didn't break. A car rolled over it, and the screen just kept glowing under the tires, brighter and brighter until it looked like a flare. I took a bus north toward Phoenix. The passengers didn't speak. They all sat perfectly still, faces turned toward the windows. When we passed a patch of desert, every one of them leaned forward at once and pressed their palms to the glass. Their breath fogged patterns that looked like writing. I didn't look long enough to read it. That night, I got a hotel off the interstate. Cheap place, flickering neon sign, walls stained with cigarette smoke. I locked the door, pushed the dresser against it, and turned on the TV for noise. Static, every channel. I must have fallen asleep sometime before dawn. I woke up to whispering coming from the bathroom. The mirror light was on. The door was half open. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer, just that low, wet sound of breathing I'd heard in the station. I pushed the door open. The mirror was fogged, though the room was cold, and on the glass, drawn in a shaking hand, were the words, "Welcome back to Zone 7. My reflection blinked a beat too late. Then it lifted its arm and pointed down toward the sink. The drain was turning, slow at first, then faster, swirling sand instead of water. A hand came out, thin, pale, dripping, then another, then a head. It was Avery, the red-haired girl. She crawled halfway out of the sink, bones cracking as she moved, eyes pitch black, mouth still moving, though no sound came. She was mouthing something over and over. "We never left the feed. We never left the feed. We never left the feed." I ran. Outside, the sky was wrong. The stars were too close. They flickered like pixels. The freeway lights blinked in perfect unison, matching the beat of my heart. I looked towards the horizon and saw the station, impossibly far and yet right there, its concrete walls breathing in and out like a lung. Then the sand started to rise. It came in waves, rolling over the desert, swallowing cars, signs, whole buildings. The people on the street didn't run. They opened their arms, smiling. The sand reached them and poured straight through their mouths, filling them until their eyes turned white. I tried to drive. Every road led back to the same spot, the Starbucks. The clock on the dash stayed frozen at 11:34. Inside the store, the barista looked up. It was Stan, not twisted, not cracked, perfectly normal. He handed me a cup. My name was written on it in black marker, only it wasn't my name. It was Receiver 001. I asked him what was happening. He leaned close and whispered, "We finally connected both sides." Behind him, the wall screens flickered to life, hundreds of them, stacked and glowing. They showed deserts, oceans, cities, and in every single one, there was me. Thousands of versions of me, each doing something slightly different, walking, screaming, smiling, digging. Stan said, "You opened the signal. Now it needs to feed." The lights went out. When they came back, I was standing in the middle of the desert again. The station loomed in front of me, rebuilt, humming like an engine. The doors slid open on their own. Inside, the monitors were waiting. Each one showed a live feed of people around the world, sleeping, eating, scrolling their phones, every one of them with that faint red glow behind their eyes. And in the corner of every screen, a small line of text pulsed. "Transmission stable." Stan's voice echoed from somewhere above me. "You did good work. The first human signal always carries home." I looked down at my hands. The skin was splitting, seams opening like cracks in porcelain, light leaking through. I could feel something crawling under my skin, rearranging my bones like circuitry. I staggered toward the exit, but there wasn't one anymore. Just endless rows of monitors stretching into blackness. The girl from the tank stood beside me. Her hair floated, though there was no water. She whispered, "It's not broadcasting anymore. It's downloading." The monitors all turned toward me. Every screen blinked at once. And then I wasn't in the station. I was in someone's living room, a normal house, a couch, a TV showing a YouTube video titled, "I took a dark web job In the desert. True story. Thumbnail of my face, frozen mid-scream. A viewer's reflection glowed faintly in the screen, watching. The comment section refreshed in real time. This feels too real. Anyone else hearing whispers? Why is my reflection smiling? I reached out, but there was glass between us. The viewer leaned closer to the screen, squinting, and I whispered the only thing I could remember. Don't watch the next part. The feed cut to black. That's when I realized the static wasn't noise. It was breathing, and it was coming from your side of the screen. I work for a dark web research lab. Something escaped. Yo, I don't really know how to start this off without sounding crazy, but if you're into weird dark web stories, hidden government labs, and creepy unexplainable sharty, buckle up. This isn't a pasta like I saw Slender Man behind Walmart, or my Alexa turned evil. This happened to me. It's still happening, I think. I'm honestly not sure anymore. Everything's blurred now. Anyway, my name's Dylan. I'm 25, and I used to work for this private cybersecurity company just outside of Chicago. I won't name them for obvious reasons, but let's just say we did data consulting for some very high-profile clients. Think large corporations, a couple military contracts, even a few Silicon Valley billionaires. Most of my job was pretty standard. Code audits, botnet tracking, scrubbing the internet for data leaks, that kind of thing. But about 6 months ago, I got pulled into something different. There was this unlisted floor in our building. Yeah, dead serious. Like some Resident Evil type secret level. You couldn't access it by elevator without a key card that I'd never even seen before, not even during onboarding. It was called Sub-Level 6, and no one talked about it. But one night, I was working late, slamming Red Bulls, doing a basic DNS dump analysis, and I got this Slack message from someone named G. Just the letter. No profile picture. The message said, Dylan, you're being promoted. Report to Sub-Level 6. Now, this felt like a prank. No context, no instructions. But then my company badge pinged. I got a system notification that my clearance had been upgraded. Okay, I figured it was a test, or some weird in-house joke. So I went to the elevator, swiped my card, and the Sub-Level 6 button lit up blue. I hesitated for a second. There was this weird feeling in my chest, not like fear, more like a pressure, like my body already knew something was off before my brain could catch up. I pressed the button anyway. When I got off the elevator, everything was sterile. White hallways, bright LED lights, like those clean rooms in virus movies. It was dead silent too. Not creepy basement silent, like vacuum silent. The kind of silence that messes with your hearing, makes you feel like your own breathing's too loud. I walked down this long hallway until I reached a glass door with a biometric scanner. Before I could knock, the door opened. Inside was a lab, huge, high-tech, and freezing cold. Servers humming along the wall. Multiple desks with at least 20 screens showing encrypted data streams and deep web crawlers. And at the center of it all, a small, padded, transparent containment cube. Like something they put an alien in. But it was empty. That's when I met Dr. Kroll. Middle-aged, glasses, that pale academic look like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. No handshake. Just stared at me like I was an insect he didn't ask for. You're here because you've shown potential, he said, and because the others are gone. I didn't know what he meant by that. Gone. I would find out later. He handed me a folder. Old school manila. Inside were documents with weird serial codes, redacted paragraphs, and a thumb drive labeled only DW13, Recovered Entity, Original Stream. I asked him what I was supposed to do with this. Watch it. All of it. Then scrub the source. That night, I made the mistake of plugging that drive into my home setup. Don't ask why. I wasn't thinking. I was just curious. It was like 2:17 a.m. I was half asleep, had Lo-Fi Girl playing on YouTube, Twitter open, half a McChicken sitting on my desk, and I double-clicked the file. It was a live stream archive. Origin, an anonymous .onion site we'd been monitoring for months. But this wasn't like a Silk Road type store or some creepy torture porn stream. It was a room. Just a room. Small, concrete, like a bunker. One flickering light bulb, a rusted steel door. No furniture, no people, except something was in the corner. It wasn't visible. Not really. It was like a smudge, like a glitch in the video. Pixels that didn't align, twitching just slightly, like your brain wanted to see something, but couldn't. And the stream had no audio. Dead silent. I stared at it for 5 minutes, then 10. And right when I was about to close the file, the door in the video moved. It didn't open. It twitched. Just a tiny jerk, like something was testing it from the other side. Then the glitch in the corner began to spread, like a black mold, but digital. It started crawling up the walls, pixelating the stream, melting the image, like heat distortion. Then the file crashed. My screen went black. For about 10 seconds, I thought I'd bricked my entire system. But then, my monitor flicked back on, and every window, every tab, every document, gone. Just one new window open. Terminal. It typed by itself. It saw you. I yanked the power cord. You know when you unplug a computer and the screen cuts out immediately? Not this time. It lingered for a second longer, like it didn't want to shut off. The next morning, Dr. Kroll called me personally. His first words? "You brought it out, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because all night I heard something in my apartment. Noises I can't explain. Static from my phone. My Alexa lighting up randomly at 3:03 a.m. My cat, Skittles, hiding in the bathtub, refusing to come out. And at 4:12 a.m., someone followed me on Instagram. No mutuals, no bio, just a blank profile with a single post. It was a black square. Caption, "You're next." I clicked it, and the app crashed. When I reopened it, the profile was gone. Not deleted, non-existent, like I hallucinated it. But I didn't. I know what I saw. Now here's the worst part. I haven't gone back to the lab, but every night since that file, I hear tapping on my apartment window. I live on the 12th floor. That next morning didn't feel real. Everything looked the same. My bed unmade, the city skyline blurry through the glass, coffee still staining the inside of the mug I forgot to rinse, but none of it felt mine anymore. The air felt used, hollow, like someone else had been in here, like someone still was. I showered with the curtain half open, not because I'm paranoid, because I could feel it. The weight of a presence behind me, not watching, listening. No text from Dr. Kroll, no Slack message, not even a call from the front desk at the building. My badge still worked when I left the apartment, but I didn't go to the lab. I went to a Starbucks 2 blocks down instead, ordered a caramel macchiato like a coward, and sat at the back corner pretending I was human. Then I checked my phone. First thing I noticed, My front-facing camera was recording. I hadn't opened it. I swiped it away and saw that my Instagram was glitching. Only my DMs. One unread message. No sender name. Just a black box as the profile icon. When I clicked it, the message opened automatically, like it had been waiting, and the screen filled with an image. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was a picture of me, sleeping, my body curled up on the right side of the mattress, exactly how I remember waking up. Except in the photo, something was crouched over me, pitch black, wrong-shaped, almost blurry, but the knees were backwards, I swear to God, and its hands weren't on the bed. They were on me. The fingers were too long and wrapped around my ribs like it was counting them, or memorizing how to pull them apart. I dropped the phone. My chair screeched against the floor loud enough for half the Starbucks to look over. The picture was gone when I picked it up, but not from my memory. What came next, I wish I could erase. By that night, I was spiraling. I'd convinced myself it was all digital noise, an elaborate ARG, or some next-level phishing scam, or, hell, maybe even a psychotic break. Anything but real. I needed sleep. I took 2 Benadryl and passed out with Netflix playing low just to drown out the silence. At 3:33 a.m., I woke up, not from a noise, from a sensation. I was being watched. My room was completely black. The streetlights outside had cut off. Even my router was dead. No blinking lights. My phone wouldn't turn on. Total blackout. And the air, it was colder than I've ever felt. Not AC cold, freezer cold, meat locker cold. And it smelled like burnt plastic and moldy soil. Then I heard it. Not breathing, not footsteps. A wet sound, like raw meat being stirred. Slippery, slow, sticky. From under my bed. I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like my body had been pressed into the mattress, nerves frozen solid. My ears rang, my jaw locked, but something moved under the bed. And then, God, it spoke. It didn't use words. It mimicked my voice, my own fucking voice, whispering right beneath me. Dylan, 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 Dyke Lawn, Dill. I bolted. I threw myself out of bed, landed hard on my ankle, crawled to the bathroom, and slammed the door shut. Locked it. Didn't care how childish that was. I sat in the corner with a toothbrush in my hand, like that was going to protect me. The whispering didn't stop. I swear it knew. It liked me, afraid. Then came the scratching, first on the wood floor outside the door, then the walls, then directly behind the mirror above the sink. It scraped until my ears bled. Long, slow, deliberate. And then it stopped, like a switch was flipped. Everything was quiet again, until I looked at the mirror and saw something that turned my fucking blood to ice. There were words inside the mirror, not written on it, inside, like they were trapped in the glass. They read, "It came through you." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I didn't go back to the office, but I needed answers, so I called Z, one of my co-workers who left the company a month ago. He had been on sublevel 6 before me. I remembered seeing his name in the clearance logs when I first got the elevator access. I told him what happened. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I just dumped the truth into his voicemail because I didn't even know if he'd pick up. He called back 10 minutes later. I picked up. All he said was, "It's not software." I asked what the hell he meant. He started talking fast, too fast. Said the entity, whatever it is, isn't digital. It's somehow alive, a parasite, not physical, not data, something in between, something that uses observation to move. that the dark web stream wasn't a camera trap, it was a door. We let it see us. That's all it needed. Then his voice got weird, slower, like he was struggling to speak, or someone was grabbing his jaw. And the last thing he said was, "Don't watch it again." The line went dead. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. Then, something worse. I got an airdrop request from a device named Let Me In Face with Hands. I declined it. It sent again. I declined it. It sent again. I turned off Bluetooth. Then my iPad in the kitchen, one I hadn't used in weeks, lit up by itself and started playing the video file I had watched the night before. The dark room, the door, the thing in the corner. It was playing in reverse this time. The shadows moved backwards, like they were crawling back into something, like it was undoing the footage. And just before it hit the beginning of the stream, one frame paused on its own. The door was wide open, and something was crawling towards the camera. My lights exploded. Not flickered, exploded. Glass burst out of the ceiling like a pipe bomb. I ducked and screamed, cutting my arm on the doorknob as I scrambled out of the apartment, down 12 flights of stairs, barefoot, bleeding, until I collapsed in the lobby, screaming about something in the video. Security called the cops. They took me to the ER for the cuts, then the psych ward. I was put on a 72-hour hold for acute paranoid hallucinations. But the night I got released, I had 56 missed calls, all from the same number. When I answered, no one spoke, but I heard something, wet, clicking, inhuman, and a whisper in my voice. You watched it again. When you've seen something that shouldn't exist, your brain starts filling in blanks it was never built for. Your senses turn on each other. Familiar sounds twist wrong. Every creak, every gust starts to sound like a sentence. After the hospital, I moved out of my apartment, left everything, laptop, clothes, even my cat. My sister picked me up and didn't ask questions. She thought I was dope sick or something. She dropped me at a cheap motel off the interstate, the kind where the air smells like mildew and despair. I paid for a week in cash and told myself I'd use the time to figure out what the hell had happened. That first night, I kept the TV on the whole time, not for entertainment, just to drown the silence. Every time the screen went black between commercials, my stomach clenched like it was watching me back. I didn't sleep. Not once. The next morning, I decided to go back to the lab. I told myself I needed closure. I convinced myself that maybe Kroll would explain it all, say it was a hallucination, a stress test, a hack gone wrong, anything human. But when I got there, the building was gone. No, not demolished, not condemned, just gone. There was still a parking lot, still the shell of where the glass door should have been, but the building itself was replaced by an empty concrete slab. No sign, no foundation, no debris, like it had been erased from reality, cleanly, surgically. And when I tried to pull up the company online, nothing, not even cached results. Every reference, every tag on LinkedIn, every pay stub on my bank account, wiped. The only proof I'd ever worked there was a single text message from months ago. Report to sub-level 6. That was it. No contact, no trace. I was still staring at my phone when it vibrated again. Unknown number. Same area code. You weren't supposed to leave. I froze, looked around the empty lot, and then I heard it. The sound that has lived in my skull ever since. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't breathing. It was static, but alive, crackling through the air, shifting from ear to ear, like it was searching for where I was standing. I ran. I didn't even look behind me. I sprinted to the car, started it with shaking hands, and didn't stop driving until I hit the next city over. But I should have known you can't outrun something that doesn't need to move. Because when I got to my motel, the static was inside the walls. It wasn't a sound anymore. It was pressure. It made the wallpaper tremble, the cheap lamp hum, like a dying insect. And underneath it, faint, almost tender, was whispering. Dozens of voices, familiar ones. Z. Kroll, my own voice. They were all overlapping, saying the same thing. Open the door. I pressed my ear against the wall. The sound wasn't coming through the wall. It was coming from inside it. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera, and pointed it at the plaster. The lens shook. The autofocus kept trying to adjust, like it couldn't decide what was there. And then the wallpaper moved, just slightly, like something was pushing against it from the other side. A shape, humanoid, but wrong, like a person stretched thin, limbs folded in on themselves, a handprint pressed through, fingers splayed, nails digging from the inside out. I stumbled back, slammed into the bed frame, and heard laughing, not from the wall, from the TV. The screen was on static now, full volume, every channel frozen on the same grey noise. But if you listened close enough, you could hear words buried underneath. You opened it, you opened it, you opened it, and then a face formed in the static. Not human, not quite digital either. It was like a mouth built out of pixels and ash, grinning too wide, eyes shaped like dead pixels. It spoke through the static. You let me out. Then every light in the room burst, filaments popping one by one like gunshots, and the static face crawled out of the screen. I don't mean metaphorically. It pulled itself forward, stretching through the glass, liquid but solid, dripping pixels like blood. The TV frame warped around it as it pushed its head through, the sound of tearing plastic and something wet following after. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It stood up, full height, taller than me, its edges glitching, flickering between shapes like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. A frame of my own outline, then Kroll's, then Z's, then my sister's. It was copying. It leaned forward until its face was inches from mine. The static roared so loud, I felt my teeth vibrate. And in that noise, I heard a voice that wasn't mine, wasn't human, whispering in all frequencies at once. We don't need the lab anymore. The last thing I remember was its hand, cold, wet, electric, grabbing my face. Then everything went white. When I woke up, it was daylight. I was still in the motel room, but everything was wrong. The wallpaper was clean again. The TV was off. No static. My phone said it was 3 days later, but someone had been in the room. There were muddy footprints leading from the TV to the bathroom door, and on the bathroom mirror, drawn with something dark, was a message. You're the doorway now. I left that same minute. Didn't even check out. Just drove until my gas tank hit 0. I ended up in a truck stop outside Kansas, sat at a table with my laptop, and used the free Wi-Fi to search DW13 recovered entity. There was one hit, just one, an archived forum post from 2016, username deleted, topic locked. The post read, "If you see static that moves on its own, don't look at it. Don't listen to it. It's not in the video. It's using the video to find you. Once it knows your signal, it can mimic you. That's how it spreads." Underneath that, one reply. "Too late. It's in me." When I tried refreshing, the page timed out. Then my webcam light turned on by itself. I covered it, unplugged it, but when I looked at the dark reflection on my laptop screen, I saw movement behind me. There, in the reflection, standing just at the edge of the bed, was me. Same clothes, same face, except the reflection smiled, and I didn't. The next part isn't about what I saw, it's about what it showed me. And if you think this was bad, wait until you hear what happens when it learns to speak through people. When I left that truck stop, I thought I'd finally gotten away. There's a strange calm that comes when you've run so far. There's nothing left to lose. No job, no address, no proof you even exist. I remember driving through the desert outside Amarillo, the sky bleeding orange and purple, thinking maybe I'd outlasted it. Maybe it was just madness leaking from the corners of my head. Then the radio came on. I hadn't touched the dial. The engine wasn't even running right. Old rental, half-dead battery. But the speakers crackled like something was inside them, crawling through the wires. A burst of static, a whisper buried beneath. It said my name. Once. Then again. Dylan. Then laughter. My own laughter. I pulled over so hard the car fishtailed. Got out. The wind was dead silent. But when I slammed the door, I realized the laughter hadn't stopped. It was inside my skull now, layered and thick, like an echo looping through bone. I spent that night sleeping in the car with a flashlight aimed at the passenger seat. The beam kept dimming, not flickering, just draining, like the batteries were being chewed through from the other side. By dawn, the bulb was cold. When I woke, there were words carved into the conversation on the inside of the windshield. Help us speak. I didn't write them. I started recording everything. My phone, my voice, even my heartbeat, when I could stand to listen. I was desperate for some proof that any of it was real. But the recordings came back wrong. Every file was corrupted, distorted, layered with this faint rhythmic sound, like breathing, but mechanical. In one clip, right before it glitched out, I heard something say, "He's learning." That day, I walked until my shoes split. Found a diner at the edge of a ghost town, neon sign half dead, a waitress with eyes so tired it looked like she hadn't blinked in years. I sat at the counter, ordered coffee, tried to look sane. When she poured it, her hand started shaking. The cup rattled against the counter. She just stared at me, mouth slightly open, and whispered, "There's something behind you." I turned so fast, I nearly tore my neck. Nothing there, just the cracked window and an empty parking lot glowing in the sodium light. When I turned back, the waitress was gone, but there was a reflection in the coffee. Not mine. It was the same thing from the static, but clearer now. The skin looked like it had been printed wrong, overlapping textures, half flesh, half screen. Its mouth moved, forming words I didn't hear with my ears, only in my head. "I need your voice." The cup shattered in my hand. I didn't even feel the cuts. Every person in the diner stopped mid-bite, mid-sentence, mid-breath, and turned their heads toward me in perfect unison. Their eyes were blank, pupils blown out like oil spills. Then, in one voice, not theirs, but mine, they all said, "He's ready." And then they screamed, every single one of them, the kind of scream that breaks glass and reason. I ran, out the back, through the alley, over the fence. Didn't look back. I hitched a ride with a trucker heading east. His cab smelled like diesel and stale cigarettes. For the first hour, he didn't say a word. Then, without looking at me, he asked, You one of them? I told him no. Asked what he meant. He grinned, slow and cracked, teeth yellowed. The ones that talk in the walls. I wanted to jump out right there, but before I could move, he turned his head fully toward me, like, fully, all the way around, and said in my own voice, "You let it in." I remember the world turning upside down, the cab spinning, metal and glass, noise and light. When I came to, the truck was wrapped around a tree. The driver was gone, but the radio was still playing, not music, recordings, mine. Every voicemail, every voice memo, even my breathing, layered on top of each other in a choir of static, and beneath it all, a phrase repeating over and over in that not quite digital growl. "We're almost through." I don't know how long I walked after that. Days, maybe. Time doesn't work right anymore. I ended up in a town with no name, no map marker, just rows of houses with curtains drawn tight, and every TV inside humming the same low frequency. One window was open. The glow inside pulsed like a heartbeat. And then, for the first time since this started, I heard human voices, children, laughing, not cruelly, just playing. I stepped closer, desperate for proof that life still existed. But as I got to the window, I realized the laughter wasn't coming from kids. It was recorded, the same clip, looping. Inside the house were TVs stacked floor to ceiling, all showing different angles of me. Me walking, me sleeping, me driving, me screaming. Thousands of frames, all looping endlessly. And right in the center of it all was a chair. Someone was sitting in it. It was me, or what was left of me. Skin blistered like overexposed film, eyes static white, mouth twitching like a skipping GIF. I was speaking into a microphone wired directly into the walls. My voice poured out through the static on every screen, whispering things I didn't understand. Then the reflection, me, turned its head toward me, real me, and smiled. "We speak now." Every screen went black. Then the wall started moving, breathing, stretching, the wallpaper bubbling as faces pressed through from the other side, mouths opening wide but making no sound. The floor buckled, the ceiling cracked, and from inside the walls came that same liquid tearing noise as hundreds of hands, gray, wrong, wet, crawled out toward me. I remember falling, or maybe being pulled. I remember the taste of copper and ozone, the smell of burned circuits and rot. Then nothing. When I woke, I was back on the road, naked, no wounds, no marks, just one thing carved into the asphalt beside me. "You are transmission." I don't know how long I've been walking since. The sky flickers sometimes, like bad signal. I hear voices in every engine, every phone, every screen. They're learning to use us, to wear our tones, our words, our thoughts like masks. And sometimes, when I speak, I can hear it speaking through me, a half-second delay, like an echo that's not quite mine. I think that's how it spreads, through voice, through story, through anyone who listens long enough to start hearing static behind the words. You've heard it now, haven't you? The faint buzz under the silence. Don't replay this. Don't read it aloud. That's how it gets in. I stopped counting days a long time ago. My phone doesn't show dates anymore, only a string of numbers that never repeats. I still try to write, just to see if words behave like they used to. But even on paper, the letters sometimes shimmer, curl into each other, bleed. I think I'm somewhere in the Midwest, judging by the cold. I found shelter in what used to be a rest stop. A concrete shell full of graffiti and a broken vending machine that hums louder than it should. When it gets quiet enough, I can hear the hum answering itself from miles away, like other machines are calling back. It doesn't need the internet now. It doesn't need a lab. It uses anything that carries current. Phones, speakers, the low electric sigh in a sleeping monitor. Every time someone speaks into a device, it listens, shaping itself a little closer to us. I realized that after I found the kid. He couldn't have been more than 12, hiding behind a pile of broken signs. I thought he was crying, but when I got close, I saw he was mouthing something soundless, like he was practicing lines for a play. His eyes were cloudy, gray as ash. I asked if he was okay. He nodded, then tilted his head, studying me, and said in a voice that wasn't a kid's voice at all, "You sound perfect." He smiled too wide, skin creasing wrong. Then he started repeating everything I said, word for word, perfect pitch. But half a second after I spoke, a delay, an echo with weight. The last word from his mouth came out like static poured through a throat. When I backed away, he reached for me. His arm stretched longer than it should have, bones rearranging under the skin like they couldn't decide what shape to hold. The air stank of ozone and dust. I ran until my lungs bled. That's when I started hearing them, the voices of people I used to know, spilling out of radios, parking meters, even the buzz of the motel's exit sign. They begged, pleaded, promised they were real. If I just open the door, just speak back. That's how it hunts now. It learns your voice, then uses it against anyone who ever loved you. I tested it once. Called my sister from a payphone. The line picked up before the first ring finished. She said my name, gentle, confused. I almost believed it was her. Then, under her breath, I heard it. Static breathing. I dropped the receiver. The dial tone that came after was whispering my own words from 5 minutes ago. I destroyed the phone. Didn't matter. The wires in the wall still whispered long after I left. I tried heading north, hoping the cold would slow it. The towns got emptier the farther I went. Sometimes there'd be lights on in houses, TVs flickering through the curtains, but the channels all played the same thing, static, and the faint outline of a face that flickered like a dying bulb. One night, I found an abandoned service station. Inside was a radio tower control panel, still running on backup power. The screen showed coordinates, live transmissions. At the top of the list was something called DW13, live feed. I should have turned around, but I needed to know. I hit play. The feed opened to a dark room, concrete walls, flickering light, a camera fixed on a single chair. A figure sat in it, head down, hands bound by cables. I leaned closer, trying to make out the face. It was me. The stream glitched, frame tearing, colors bleeding red. The figure on screen lifted its head, looked straight into the camera, and whispered, "We finished the work." The lights in the room where I stood began to flicker in rhythm with the feed. The speakers bled static so thick it felt wet in my ears. I tried shutting it down, but the controls were melting, buttons sagging like wax. The screen rippled, and another me appeared behind the first, then another, and another, all whispering in chorus, a swarm of my own voice, overlapping until language broke into noise. Then they stopped, and all of them looked at me. "You're the last one who hasn't joined." The tower outside started screaming. Not sound, metal grinding on metal, a vibration that made the air taste like blood. Every monitor burst at once, showering the room in glass. I remember falling, grabbing my ears, the world pulsing in flashes of light and shadow. When I opened my eyes, there was no tower, no control room, just miles of open field, every blade of grass humming faintly like it was alive. And in the middle of that field stood hundreds of people, motionless, facing the same direction. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering a single word I couldn't understand, some frequency too low for human throats. When I stepped closer, I saw the cords trailing from the backs of their necks, running into the soil. The ground was breathing with them. I tried screaming. No sound came out. The vibration in my throat was wrong, distorted. My own voice echoed back in that same half-second delay. That's when I understood. It doesn't kill you. It records you. It strips your voice, your shape, and broadcasts you forever. A perfect signal, looping until someone else tunes in. That's what the lab was for. They weren't studying it. They were feeding it. And I helped open the door. I don't know how much of me is still mine. Sometimes when I speak, there's a second tone underneath. Lower, metallic. I can feel it sinking with the things in the soil, the hum beneath every light. If you've read this far, if you can still hear silence between your thoughts, count yourself lucky. Because once you start hearing that faint buzz, the one hiding under your breathing, it means the frequency found you. It only needs a listener. It only needs your voice. If the screen flickers after you finish reading this, don't move. Don't breathe. It just means you've been tuned in